This is Toronto Sports Rush. I'm Kyle. That's Keegan. Keegan, there are two very distinct versions of this year's Toronto Blue Jays. There are the Toronto Blue Jays when Dylan Cease pitches, and then there are the Toronto Blue Jays for literally every other moment of the season.
That was ugly, man. That series captured the Jays well, didn't it? In Boston. Every series feels like the perfect microcosm of this team because you have one game that makes you think, wow, like the talent's there, you
Yeah.
know? And that's the thing. The Jays are not lacking talent. They're lacking players who can produce and play to their talent right now. This isn't some crappy team on a $90 million payroll. Like, it's just underachieving across the board. But there are these days where everyone comes back to life. Dylan Cease has one of the best pitching performances I'll ever cover. And it looked good too, man. Like Dylan Cease wanted that. I loved that in the ninth inning, like he's pushing up to 120 pitches. He's challenging pitches himself with like Blue Jays pitchers don't do. He is honestly, I said to one of the reporters next to me when he got the final out, I said, "Oh my God, does he think it's a no hitter?" Because like he was celebrating, right? But good for him, man. Like if I'm a fan of a baseball team or any team that's bad, I want my players to give a damn. Like if you're going to be bad, at least care, you know. And Dylan Cease cares. He wanted that. He strives for greatness, you know. Like he's not one of these guys that just BSs and says, "Oh, it's just part of the process." Blah blah blah. No, like he says openly, like I want to be great. I want to be better. This means something to me, and that's so refreshing when I'm watching and covering this season that just has no heartbeat, no life. And the bats come to life that day, and you start to think like it was that last flicker of hope where like maybe we show up for the Sunday finale and maybe they just win 7 in a row. No, of course not. Why I ever would think that this year, I don't know, but flopped again. And at this point, I think it's very obvious where this is headed towards selling.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth, Keegan, because there's that flicker of hope on Saturday. And it's not, listen, I'm pretty realistic about the playoff chances, but I don't want them to end this way. But it seems somewhat inevitable at this point because as good as they were Saturday, they were that bad on Sunday. And on Saturday, Dylan Cease beat Sonny Gray, man. Like that's an elite Cy Young contending pitching matchup. And the Blue Jays bats battered Sonny Gray. He hadn't given up that many hits, and they were hitting the baseball hard. It wasn't just bloop singles.
Yeah.
They did everything right for one day, and then it was all over. The bats went frozen the next day. Everything reverted back to the norm, and the flicker of hope that people might have had for some sort of turnaround in this season was gone just as quick as it came.
Yeah, the Sonny Gray game was incredible. Like that's the type of pitcher the Jays should be punishing. Frankly, I know he's really damn good, but Sonny Gray is not going to overwhelm you and miss bats. He's going to pitch to contact, and the Jays make a lot of contact. Now they need to make better contact, and they did for a day. And you see, I know Vlad. They're all singles, which still doesn't excite me with Vladdy, but I mean, you can't argue with having a few hits and reaching base 4 times. I think it was. George Springer looks really good, man. Like he's swinging harder. He looks energized, and you are seeing a whole bunch of too little, too late. Frankly, at this point, and in the frustrating part is that when you really step back, and this is why I'm always so hard on April and May, and I look like I'm out of my mind. Maybe I am, but I really think that all of the games matter. And the Blue Jays right now, 5.5 back of that last spot in the AL wildcard race. So let's ask ourselves, where would they need to be right now for them to keep going for it? 2.5 back? I think you're still trying to go for it, right? That's 3 games, which means that if the Blue Jays once every 5 weeks this season had figured out a game, we're in a different spot. Once a month, figure out a game, you're in a different spot. I know it gets blurred together because they play 162, and that can trick you into thinking some games aren't as important as others. This is not the NFL where you play 17 and one game can screw your whole year up. But it's so important when you get into such a tight race like this because you're not just chasing Cleveland, it's mini Seattle,
Yeah.
Houston, Baltimore, Detroit in the middle of all. It's a mess. There were just so many opportunities for this team to be average. You know, they didn't need to be great. They did not need to be even good this year, which makes this so much more frustrating. The bar for wild card number 3 is average baseball. And I can't believe that they haven't reached that. I know we've seen it play out, so you have to say, like, come on, idiot. You gotta believe it. Yeah, I do now that I've seen it. But I don't believe in moving the goalposts, man. Like, this was supposed to be a team that was winning the division, and I can't believe we're here.
Yeah, the bitter irony in all of this is exactly what you just mentioned. The bar is so low. It has never been easier to make
Yeah.
the playoffs. They play in like the toughest division, the richest
Yeah.
division in all
Like,
of
this isn't the
baseball.
'80s where the Blue Jays
No,
win 90 games and be like, "Well, not enough."
just
You know,
about.
like, this is
They could
oh my
literally make the
lord.
playoffs finishing
Yeah.
2 games below 500 at this rate. In all likelihood, that won't be the case now. But man, the bar has never been lower. And so that changes this conversation. Let's transition to the fact that if this team isn't a seller at this point, not that they need to be completely imploded, but they definitely need to make changes and move on from contracts. It seems in all likelihood to me we saw Kevin Gossman's last start in a Blue Jay uniform yesterday in Boston.
Probably, which sucks, man.
Yeah.
His next one would line up Saturday, August 1st at home in Toronto. And if this stays how it is, I don't see any reason for him to make that start. You're just risking something
Yeah.
unnecessarily if you're the Blue Jays. And coming off of his last start, I know Gausman allowed 3 over 6. There was kind of the bloopy Jaron Duran single. If anything, I think he pitched better than his line was. He looked good. He looked solid, and that's good enough. So this is probably, if you want to call it 50-50 or even 51% to make it a majority, his last start with the Blue Jays. And I know this has not been a good stretch for Gausman, but he is someone who deserves to go out on his terms. Instead, there's a world in which the last time I interview him, he's saying, I don't want to go. I don't want to be traded. Like
Yeah.
it's it's really tough, man, to see from a guy who has given so much to this org, who I respect as much as anyone I've ever covered or been around. Like just as a person in the clubhouse, as a pitcher, to be as reliable as he's been. People don't talk enough about starters who can stay healthy and pitch every 5 days. He's done that the whole time he's been here. When you sign a starter in their early 30s to a 5-year deal, you're hoping for a couple great years, maybe a good one. Maybe they blow their elbow out. You miss half a year here. Gausman's been so solid, man. He has been everything they could have dreamed of and more. And to see him traded will be strange, man. Like him in another uniform, it's tough from a guy who you can envision long term coming back as an alumni,
Mhm.
and doing events in Toronto. But there'll be a weird footnote now of him in a Phillies jersey, an Atlanta jersey, wherever he ends up, and it will not look normal.
And if you look at his stat line for yesterday, he pitches 6 innings, 5 hits allowed, 3 runs allowed, 1 walk, 6 strikeouts. For last year's Blue Jays team, that was a great start. They win
Yeah,
that ball game
not anymore.
66% of the time last year, but they don't win that anymore because they can't score runs. So there is value. And I can't help but think that should he end up on another roster that is making a push right now, there will be a little more spring in his step too, getting out onto a mound for a team that's actually competing this season. So let's stay on the mound. Shane Bieber has, not that they're going to get much more back for him, but he's probably made himself a desirable piece for another similar team.
Yeah, one more good start and he gets really interesting. Coming off of his last one, 7 really good innings. One more good one, and I think that you can call it a trend. Now, if he gets hit around in Washington, which is quite possible because the Nats are really, really damn good,
Yeah.
I don't know where the conversation goes. But Bieber as well is not making as much as Gausman. Like the money is going to be a big factor in all of these. I think that's the number one thing that's not getting talked about is money in these trades. Like Gausman will have roughly 7 million bucks left in this deal. Are the Blue Jays going to eat 5 million of that to get a good prospect back? Or do you just let the other team take on the money and get back some kid from single A? I hope they eat some money to get a good prospect. That's how you bully teams. That's how you flex your financial muscle. Bieber doesn't have as much left, but it's still going to be a factor. And if he goes out and throws 7 innings of 1 run ball against the Nats, he will be the guy who, among front offices, but also among media and people who talk about this, will get really gassed up as the guy who's on the rise. Is this the guy? And The Blue Jays traded, I believe, their number 5 prospect for him last year, Cal Steven. And I know that there was still team control left, but Bieber was still rehabbing from Tommy John last year,
Yeah.
right? Like, it's not like he was in a better place than he is right now. So, yes, he'd be a strict rental. You're not going to get someone's number 1 prospect or anything crazy like that. But you might be able to get a real prospect who has a ranking number next to their name and who can slide into the Blue Jays top 30 and be something that you're aware of. Bieber's really interesting, man. Like, when I compare him and Gausman, the money that's eaten or sent away is going to control most of this. But there's a world in which you get more for Bieber than Gausman, and that might be a pretty realistic world.
Speaking of enigma, speaking of interesting guys, Max Scherzer takes the hill in Washington tonight.
Yeah,
His run with the Jays is just something for the storybooks down the road. This season alone, his rehab starts have been going well lately, but being back on a major league hill, is there any chance he's also auditioning to be moved right now? Is there a piece is there a chance he'd fit in as a piece in another roster?
definitely. And I think that's the ultimate example of one that I know a lot of people are going to see and think like, "Shut up!" Like, no, no chance, right? This guy's got a 10 ERA over 20 some innings. Um, but money again matters here, and what you've done lately matters here. Now, maybe Max Scherzer goes out tonight and gets rocked by the Nats, like a lot of people do, and I was going to say the conversation ends. Then the conversation gets awkward. There's not really a purpose for Scherzer to be on a team playing out the stretch at 42. He's still 40 plus innings away from his first $1 million incentive when he starts to make more here. But if Scherzer goes out and looks okay tonight, he will have less than $1 million left on his base contract. And when we talk trades, I think a lot of people's minds go to a big prospects, big. This could just be for a player to be named later type of deal. If there's a team out there who is kind of in the spot the Blue Jays are at, where their number 5 spot's a bit wonky, like you don't know what to do with it, give the Blue Jays a player to be named later or cash considerations to get Max Scherzer into your clubhouse and try him out for a start or two. If they don't go well, whatever, you move on. But maybe you can catch 8 or 10 starts of a 4 ERA and a guy who is going to really perk up your clubhouse. His season up to this point has just been a mess, man. There were the back issue, the forearm issue, the ankle issue, the thumb at multiple points. I've never heard of someone getting 3 shots in their thumb at the same time. I remember when John Schneider gave that update, I was like, whoa, well, 3? Like it feels like all of this, and that was just weeks ago, 3 shots in his thumb. It feels like all of this is the last gasp. Like it's this last attempt to do it for Max Scherzer. He's 42 today. Pitchers do not pitch until they are 42. This does not happen. And his body is clearly disagreeing with him. We just saw in AAA, he threw 5 no-hit innings. And I know it's AAA, but they're pros too, man. 5 no-hit innings with 7 Ks. He can still get his fastball up to 94, 95 when he's healthy. But it feels like Max is just like, okay, can adrenaline alone get me through 2 months without a body part falling off? Are the odds of that 10% or 20%? I don't know. Maybe he can do it just based on wanting to prove people wrong alone. Like he is he is motivated and he does not want this to end because I do not know what the hell Max Scherzer will do when he cannot go out on a mound and pitch. I don't know if he knows what he'll do either. So this is interesting, man. If he could pitch well tonight and get flipped to someone for a player to be named later, that's one of the most interesting trades of the deadline, man. And the Blue Jays will be trying to sell, like, look, this guy pitched in the World Series for us last year. At a certain point, the difference between being 41 and 42, I don't know, it's the same thing. You're the oldest pitcher in the league either way. So the Jays aren't going to get a big asset back, but it could be something. And then if the Blue Jays get to that point, you're dealing Gausman, Bieber, Scherzer. Who the hell pitches for this team? Like, I actually think the Jays could get to a point where they might need to take someone back, like some other team's bad money, like another team's version of Patrick Corbin, if you will, like just somebody who can come to Toronto and keep the team respectable for a few months. Otherwise, you're in a really bad spot. But man, there's a lot that hinges on tonight for Scherzer, and I think he's aware of it.
Clearly, you've forgotten about pitcher Miles Straw and his ability to eat innings for
Hey,
the Blue Jays.
too many.
So another player, let's be honest, George Springer's bat has come to life a little bit. He's showing
Yeah.
signs of last year's Springer, and it's really hard for me to imagine us sitting here next week and George Springer still being in a Blue Jays uniform, all things considered.
Yeah, it's another one where like Scherzer and like some of these guys, where what would the point be of him playing out the stretch
Yeah.
in Toronto if they don't genuinely believe there's some sort of chance? And Springer is someone who I think could fit a contender very well. Being in Boston, like I see that Boston fit as a very clear one. And some contenders will have no room for him at all because he's pretty much a DH who can play the corner outfield every once in a while. But in Fenway, there's not a ton of ground to cover if you need to go out and play the outfield for a bit, at least in the corners and center. Good luck. But Springer, with what he brings as a veteran presence, his history in the postseason, which stayed good last year. I mean, he had one of the biggest moments in Jay's history that I think in time we'll appreciate as being that. And the last month, he looks really good. 5 of his last 7 games, multiple hits. His bat speed has gone way up this last month. That is something that teams will care about, especially with an older player. Like, are they peaking physically? And he appears to be. Like, he's past the broken toe. He looks healthy. He looks energized. And Springer, more than anyone, man, I think he needs to be in that situation. Like he needs to feel that energy and something unlocks within him. I know this year has not been great overall. And I know he's 36 going on 37 soon. Players don't typically get better then. But a smart organization will see the experience and see someone who can really rise to these moments. And I think he makes sense on a ton of contenders, man. And again, money a factor. Over 7 million left on his deal come the trade deadline. Another opportunity for the Blue Jays and their ownership group, who I'm told have some sort of footprint across Canada and some amount of money to flex that, to use it as a strength in a league where not many teams will be doing that at the trade deadline. It's such an opening.
And another name, and the last name I'll throw at you here, and I'm deeply regretful that Dan's not here for this part of the conversation, but Jeff Hoffman may find himself as a key piece on another team in the very near future.
He could, man, and this is the ultimate. I can hear Blue Jays fans thinking like, why? But maybe Blue Jays fans are like, please,
It's just-
Hoffman. I part of me feels for the guy because
Mhm.
you're never going to shake that ninth inning home run
No.
against the Dodgers. You just never shake that. That'll be a trivia question for 40 years in Toronto. And people will forget that he was brilliant the rest of the postseason.
Yeah.
He there are different ways to have a 4 ERA. That's what I'll say. You can just every couple outings allow a double and a bloop single, or the big blasts. And Hoffman has always been big blasts that we don't forget. Now, if you are a contending team, like if you removed the Hoffman name and the Blue Jays acquired a guy like that, I promise you there would be so many stories and TV features and coverage saying, "Oh my God, this guy's slider whiff rate, this is his fastball movement, the incredible strikeout rate of the." He's the exact type of pitcher who an aggressive front office would take a risk on. And he has a year left and money left, so again, a factor. But when you're trading for a reliever for a stretch run, you just need 20 or 25 good outings. And we have seen stretches from Jeff Hoffman where out of 25 outings, there's just 1 or 2 bad ones. Can you eat that, or will that outing come in game 7? I don't know. You got to roll the dice there a little bit. But when he is good, he is very, very, very good. In the past, I've said that's kind of not enough because the big blows are too ugly. But if you're trading for a guy, the window is tighter. You're just trying to capture some lightning in a bottle. And man, Jeff Hoffman is lightning. He is. Sometimes it will strike the wrong place and burn the whole thing down. Sure. But when he throws his slider, half the time guys swing, they're a foot away from it. When he is throwing 98, 99 and he's in the zone, He's a really damn good pitcher on his good days. And I think the Jays will get some calls, and I think he'll be attractive to a lot of teams.
Keegan, there's a part of me that feels, and I'm quite certain you feel the same way too, that I still can't believe that on Monday, July 27th, this is the conversation we're having about
Yeah.
this baseball team. But it is reality now. And I think for people that don't analyze the game and don't talk about this game constantly, it's the next week, it's really going to sink in with a lot of the fan base where this team is at right now. And this front office management team, they're going to be under the microscope up to the trade deadline because it's clear something needs to change. It's clear that the dynamic that existed throughout this lineup is gone. And it's
Yeah.
they need to retool, not rebuild, but retool to get that back. They're so far removed from that World Series loss now, but this is going to be an interesting week in Blue Jays history.
It will. It's key because I think we've learned this year more than anything that the problem was with the core of the team. That's why I struggled to blame the front office much. They went out and signed Dylan Cease for their biggest free agent deal ever, and he has been really good. He might win the Cy Young Award. Kazuma Okamoto will be an AL Rookie of the Year candidate and maybe hit 30 bombs. Tyler Rogers is one of the best relievers in baseball, even though we don't talk about him. Spencer Miles was the best find of the offseason, maybe by any team. I mean, let's striking gold, right? They nailed the offseason. But what we're learning right now is that last year was the very peak 99.9th percentile version of this core, including Vladdy in the playoffs, George Springer with his incredible season as their MVP. That was as good as it gets for that core. This year, we're seeing the other side of that. So, that core, if you average it out, is that core group good enough? And core can mean different things in baseball. This is not the Matthews, Nylander, Marner. Like it can change. You're really talking just about your everyday players, your guys who are in there 150 plus games. Is that group good enough? Or does that group need to be upgraded, refreshed, some aggression involved? That's why I'm still open to the idea of the Blue Jays making a long-term play at the deadline and buying something for 27 and beyond, because this front office needs to ask, like, are we just a good offseason away again? Or does there need to be something more fundamental changed with this roster? And I'm leaning towards yes at this point, because you saw what your absolute best was, and it was almost enough. But this is closer to reality, and the reality is not pretty this year.
Couldn't have said it any better myself, Keegan. It's the truth of where this franchise sits right now. As always, we appreciate your insight. And I'm sure over the course of the next week, there will be no lack of conversation topics with this Blue Jays baseball team. Thanks, Keegan.
You got it.